afternoon. My name is Ann Rogers, and I'm an alumni mentor from Fountain Valley School District. I had the privilege of being a mentor between the years of 2010 to 2012 at 2 different schools within my district. And I'm so privileged to be here today to talk about our story. It is a story about characters overcoming obstacles and showing true grit in the face of adversity, about standing up for what is right for students and not backing down. Back in 2010, Fountain Valley was what I would call a textbook-based district. All we did was teach to the textbook, and we did it well. And we had high-performing students, and our test scores were so good, so why would we look anywhere else? Our benchmarks, our pacing guides, all reflected the textbooks. When we had staff development, it centered around the textbook. Often publishing companies would come out and we would spend our day walking through the textbook. Riveting, I know, but back then it's all we knew. Our little isolated world seemed ideal. And then Cotsen arrived. Now, when we were accepted as a Cotsen school, I found out I was given not one but 2 schools within my district. My own school, Gisler, and a neighboring one, Cotsen. I had 3 fellows at Cotsen and 2.5 at Gisler. She loves it when I call her a half. She was part-time, but she did the work of a full fellow. Today I am focusing on the work that we did at Gisler, as it's those individuals that this story revolves around. We started back in Cotsen in 2010 with a very supportive principal and enthusiastic fellows. Having 2 fellows focusing on math, we discovered this thing called CGI, and another thing called FOSNO, or Context for Learning. We were hooked and fascinated from the get-go. Most surprising to us was that we could use the textbook as a resource or a support tool and build problem solving for the students based off standards. Our intrigue soon spread to the staff and Context for Learning kits were bought for all grades K-5. We began to have staff discussions on student questioning and what that might look like in a classroom. As we ended our first year, we had high hopes for the following year, but a change came when our beloved principal was moved, and we were assigned a principal we had no knowledge of and who had no knowledge of Cotsen. Needless to say, we were worried. But she actually turned out to be the best thing that happened to us. When my writing fellow visited Alvarado School, we saw these bins with letters on them, and we asked the teacher, "What are those?" And that's when we learned about leveling kids and matching them to appropriate text. Upon returning to our site, we told our principal about it, and she said, "Go for it." So we started pulling our bookcases apart, and we started binning books by level. The principal went on to advocate on our behalf to PTO. Each teacher received $2,000 for new books, and the PTO also funded a whole staff training on level readers and how to test kids and get them into their individual levels. She even gave us permission to leave the textbook altogether, an anomaly in our district. In fact, at one point, we invited our former superintendent to see our work, and he explained to the principal that if Gisler continued in this direction, we would not be supported by the district ever. Her response, to start a whole staff book club upon using the book Teaching with Intention, so we could all learn the importance of instruction based on student needs, not district mandates. But she saw the value, and she wasn't going to let us stop. But there's always consequences for standing up for what you believe in, and sadly that principal was fired at the end of the year, put back into the classroom at a different school. We were on our own again, and the time with Cotsen had come to an end. However, the fire still burned, and when our 3rd principal came to campus, we were ready. We had jumped out of the textbook, we had leveled all our libraries, we were matching kids to text. Not to mention all the CGI and Context for Learning work still ongoing. So when the district took a different direction to an instructional practice that put a high demand on organization and efficiency, that brought back centers and busy work, and that expected every room to look the same, we went underground. We pretended to be compliant while all the time secretly furthering our craft. Staff book clubs, we met on our lunches and after school to discuss. We wrote and received Cotsen alumni grants for Lucy Calkins units of study, partner books for book clubs. We started a workshop-style approach to teaching, and we ignored the ongoing request to fully implement the district's new instructional approach. And then it happened. After a year of silently battling us, our principal gave in, but not because she didn't want to fight us anymore, because she saw the work we were doing and she saw its benefits. She had become a believer. Thankfully today she is still our principal, and she is truly our biggest advocate, our cheerleader, and our #1 fan. We have received 3 Cotsen alumni strategic grants for staff training on writing teaching points, working with small strategic groups or book clubs, and readers workshop. This year, our grant supported our staff's need for school-wide mentor text, and each grade level met and discussed the best text to use for our different units of study and reading. Cotsen's support these last 5 years has been absolutely invaluable. Even more important to note is that under the new leadership of a new superintendent to Fountain Valley 2 years ago, our school is now recognized as the model school for our district. Not bad for a staff that was focused on. Our efforts have not been in vain. We now have schools within our district clamoring to be just like us. And it's an exciting time for us as we get to finally share our passion and learning with fellow colleagues. 2 of my mentors have gone on to be the math and reading TOSA within the district, leading the ways for others in the approaches of CGI and love of reading. And Cotsen is returning again to Fountain Valley. There has been a resurgence of Cotsen and FVSD, and 2 of our schools will be part of the Cotsen family again next year. And to think this all came about from the grit and determination of 2.5 fellows and a very stubborn mentor. In conclusion, I would like to share a quote that I wrote for our superintendent as he was preparing his proposal to beg Cotsen to come back to our district. He asked me to give him a quote about the impact Cotsen had on my teaching, and I feel that this quote sums up our story here today. In Peter Reynolds' book, The Dot, he dares readers to find their mark. That is what Cotsen, the art of teaching, did for us. Before Cotsen, we were a paint-by-numbers kind of staff, carefully creating pictures designed by somebody else. After Cotsen, we learned to paint vivid pictures on blank canvases each day, using a paintbrush guided by students and their instructional needs, not one that unifies both curiosity and creativity. And now each year we find our mark of greatness together. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Cotsen. Thank you, Cotsen Foundation, for allowing us to be the artists we always wanted to be.